a baseball group of 10, and now I'm here. And then men's basketball trained in between those groups with the other strength coach in the weight room. So we had like 4 or 5 teams come through already. It's not even lunchtime on Friday.
And then you have swim on at 2.
2 swim groups left, a baseball group of pitchers, and then we have a volleyball game tonight. So I'll probably stay for some of that. So it's kind of a longer day in the rec center.
Is Friday a lighter day? Because I know Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you're in with them. It's like 6 with baseball at 6. So like, is Friday kind of a lighter day per se?
A little bit. It depends. It's a weird time of year in college sports because like the fall sports, like the soccers and the volleyballs, won't do anything on Friday because they're playing games, right?
Right?
But all the spring sports or the winter sports, like your basketballs, your swimmings, and your baseball, softballs, will do a ton of stuff on Friday because they get 2 days to recover. So it's kind of like my job, if you guys are curious, is I do more stuff and spend more time with the out-of-season teams. So my schedule is kind of the opposite of the sport coaches, where when, like, say for right now, it's kind of more laid-back time of the year for baseball coaches and players. But for me, we're doing 3 lifts a day, 3 times a week, and running, and way more work with me this time of year. And in the spring, when those guys start traveling and being away Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, it's way easier for me with that group. But then the soccers, cross-countries, volleyballs are doing more work in the fall.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's kind of one of the things I wanted to ask you off the jump was, like, how do you manage all that? You have a bunch of sports coming in. So, like, when you're looking at it, now you've done this for quite a few years now, looking back at it, like in the summer, what do you do to kind of prep yourself to get yourself ready time management-wise? Okay,
a couple things. I try to meet with the coaches as early in the summer as possible. As soon as the class schedules come out, try to get an idea of when we're going to lift. So if your swimmers have been – Derek's been pretty consistent, that 2 to 4 o'clock block, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, for the whole time he's been here, whatever it's been, 5 or 6 years. And then you kind of build it around that, right? So if I know I have teams early in the morning, and then usually we have a break when kids go to class and teams late in the afternoon, we're trying to figure out how many days we have, how many hours that equates to in the time of a semester, and then start writing workouts based on that.
Interesting. Like, do you, like, now that you've done it for a couple of years now, and like you just said, Derek is now kept the same lift schedule, like, has it been easier for you now to really manage that?
Yeah, and I think everything gets easier the more times you do it, right? The first time you record a podcast, it's incredibly hard. The 500th time you do it is incredibly easy, right?
Yeah.
I think you guys do a pretty good job on the show of talking to student athletes that are seniors or fifth years and having them give advice to new student athletes. Because everything, your sophomore year at anything is easier than your freshman year at anything, right? So you just kind of get better and lock in. We have a little bit of a different thing here with some turnover coaches-wise. So say, for example, like tennis is a new coach this year. So it's kind of a new idea getting used to them. But you guys are both from sports where the coaches have been here. And in Jonathan's case, as longer than me, 20-something years. And in Justin's case, 5 or 6 years, I think it's been with Derek.
Yeah.
So it's been kind of like, it's kind of the same, rinse and repeat. Always trying to get better, but you kind of know what they expect, know how to deal with them, and know what kind of schedule they're looking for early on. It gets easier the more years you work with a coach.
And that is for sure. So fall season's kind of now in full swing. Volleyball's in conference play, soccer's in conference play. What have you seen out of those fall sports? What are some of the things you're excited for going forward into their fall season?
Cool. Volleyball's done pretty good so far. Their non-conference has gone pretty well, right? They beat Penn State one game. It's pretty awesome. The top, I think, 13th team in the country at that point, right? And then they start Big East play this weekend, so I'm so super excited to see how that goes. Cross country's done well this year. I don't know if you guys are following that or not. But their finishes have been the best they've been in a very long time. Men's soccer's got a couple good wins already, and so does women's soccer, honestly.
Right.
So it's kind of that cool time of the year where the non-conference stuff is out of the way. Now we're turning the corner into Big East games that really matter. As I think all 5 of those sports look pretty good going into Big East play now.
It's funny. We were talking about the other day. We had James on our first episode. The next day, he had a big goal. And the episode right before that, or the day right before that, he had his first goal, second goal of his career.
No, of his career,
Of his career.
Yep.
And then Phoebe, she comes on, goal next day. And then
it
Steven.
was also her second ever career goal, I think, as well.
Steven comes on, wins a race the following week. And then Honey Stroh comes on. I think he had a really good race. So I think there's some kind of consistency with the podcast and whatnot.
Something great's about to happen for me.
Right.
Maybe the book will sell out.
Something's going to pop off this weekend.
That's right. The book will sell out.
We'll touch on that. The book
as
later.
much as I love the episodes you guys done, you guys dropped the ball with Beeman a little bit. How'd you speak to the kid for over an hour and not mention his insane hat collection?
Oh,
he has the best hat. He has an insane baseball hat collection. You guys never noticed this?
No.
His dorm room got to look like a Lids.
No way.
He's had hundreds of hats to the point he wears hats of teams I can't stand, and I still compliment him on them.
Oh my God.
We found out that he's from the Iowa
huge baseball fan.
Huge baseball fan.
Right, yeah.
from the Iowa area, and you'd think, like, okay, you'd maybe be like baseball-wise, maybe a Denver, a Colorado Rockies fan. But no, he's a, what was he?
He was
White Sox,
He was
right?
a White Sox, but
he's wearing a Cleveland hat or a Cleveland shirt.
Okay.
How does that mix? Like, he's like, I got family from Chicago, and I like Chicago fans and stuff like that.
We might have to do better research if that's the case, because like we were asking, hey, is there anything you want to talk about? Like, let us know. And he's so humble and so kind and all that. To have a really cool hat collection is in his dorm. Like,
I know where he keeps it. Every time I see him, he's got a different hat on, and one's better than the next.
And he's told you he has like hundreds of
Me
hats.
and him have talked about hats at a level you can't imagine.
We'll have to follow up with him on that.
Yeah,
oh
we'll
my
have to
gosh.
reach out to him and say, Steven, what about these hats? And maybe we'll have him on in the spring and talk about them, just strictly hats.
Yeah.
And see what he has to say about that. Now, so one other question about really what's going on in the fall. What is like one thing as a strength coach that you've like seen this fall that you guys want to improve on going forward in the next coming month, whether that's like with basketball, the swimmings of the world, or just the sports in general? Like, how can what do you think you guys can improve to make athletes compete even more, excel even more?
Okay, I think the two
I'm
things.
stumbling over my words.
the two things you want to look at this time of year: number one, injury prevention. Right, people are going to be in the training room. We want to minimize that as much as possible. Right, and we try. I think the biggest thing for any incoming freshmen or young kids listening to this, if coming to college, wherever you go to college, ready to play at the level you're going to be expected to, then and that summer before is super important. Being, quote unquote, in shape, whatever it means for your sport, that's not going to prevent every injury, but it's going to prevent some injuries, right? Mm-hmm. And knowing if there's a conditioning test or whatever it's going to be, getting your hands on that ahead of time and being ready to be, because I always say you do more work your freshman year of college physically than you've probably done in all 4 years of high school in some cases,
absolutely.
right? So we were talking about, mandatory lifting 3 to 4 times a week, 3 to 4 hour practices, if not more, skill sessions, things that you didn't do in high school a lot of times. So try to be as physically ready as you can when you get there, and then communicate that with us as much as possible, right? And the other thing you want to look at, too, is load management, right? Some kids go home in the summer, and like baseball guys go home, they're playing in the summer, not lifting a whole lot. Some swimmers, I know you work like a crazy person in the summer, but some swimmers go home and don't swim for 3 or 4 months at a time, right? So you want to load management and acclimate everybody back to what we're going to be doing. I think the old model was kind of like shock and awe, 0 to 100 real quick, and that just didn't. That puts everybody in the training room, right? So I think we do a better job of kind of acclimating everybody gradually back into full-time athletics. But like everybody else, we got to keep getting better and refining that process and get better year after year in that.
I remember my freshman year coming in. I didn't touch a weight before coming to school, and it was like a shock to the system. Like, my body was on fire for weeks coming in. Yeah. I can imagine like freshmen feeling that same feeling as they get going into their young college careers.
I'd even notice the wake up time for the earlier sports. I know for baseball, I know for swim, like 6 a.m. in the morning. Mm-hmm. I had never woken up at 5:25, 5:30 to lift at 6 like ever my entire life, and that was definitely not on top of the workload of lifting 3 times a week and whatnot, and the baseball. But yeah, waking up that early was definitely a shock too.
Yeah, that as well, because I would practice from 7 to 9 at night. And then going from that to, oh, by the way, you're going to have 3 practices at 6:30, and then another practice on top of that. I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
That's insane.
What I would say to any incoming freshman that might hear this, try to get your coaches to explain what your schedule is going to be like ahead of time, and start getting used to that ahead of time, right? Yeah. Like if you've never lifted weights before and you're going to lift weights your freshman year, start doing it now.
Yeah.
If you're not a morning person, but your team is a morning team, you got to become a morning person for at least the next 4 to 5 years. So start getting used to that early and get your body, acclimated and ready to do those things that maybe you haven't done before.
Well, I will say you've done a very good job. Like coming in, I remember you teaching me a lot in the weight room. Whether it was squats, dumbbell presses, and stuff like that, and just making sure form was right so that injury was prevented. So
one thing I will say about that real quick is you guys are obviously great host of this show, and I think you're friends outside of this. Am I right when I say that?
Yeah.
But you guys, from a weight room perspective, the cultures of swimming versus baseball pre-college could not be more different, right? Most swimmers have never trained in a weight room before because if you look at the culture of swimming you're swimming in a pool so much in high school. You go to school and you're driving maybe an hour to get to a pool, early morning, late at night. There's not even time to lift weights, right? Baseball guys, every single baseball kid has lifted before he met me. There's sometimes they're great and they're great at moving and do everything right. Sometimes they didn't train properly. They might have an injury they're dealing with already. But the cultures are just so different, whereas I kind of look at it as a sweeping generalization a group like swimming, we have to start at square one for everybody. And I mean, push-ups, pull-ups, body weight squats. I'm not those are important skills, right? Whereas in general, our freshman baseball is coming, we could start at step 2 or 3 down the process just because they've done so much before as a sweeping generalization. And that's something you learn just kind of being in the profession longer. And probably my favorite thing about my job is that I get to deal with so many different kinds of people and so many different backgrounds. But you got to kind of know the background and work to the level they're at. You can't be like, everybody should be able to squat triple body weight, and I'm not going to be happy till that's the case. That's not going to happen for some of our teams, right? So you guys kind of meet people where they are and train appropriately.
Yeah, exactly. So let's talk about your time before Seton Hall. So what were some of the things that you did to gain experience before coming to Seton Hall, and what were they like, and how did they help you be where you are now?
Okay, cool. So my real quick bio is this. I grew up at the Jersey Shore. So you guys saw the MTV show Jersey Shore there in Seaside Heights. Yeah. I grew up in Toms River, the next town over. So that's my background. So if you're like, man, Angelo's kind of a nut, that's why. That's what I came from. One thing was super lucky growing up down the shores. I had a strength coach at my high school, just a public high school. More have him now is unheard of when I was in high school. We just were lucky enough to have one. He's a great guy. Keep in touch with him today. I talk to him every couple of weeks. I decided I wanted to do that, right? So I did that. I was lifting weights to get better at sports like everybody else. I ended up liking the weight room more than any sport I was playing, and just really fell in love with that and decided I wanted to do something similar. I went to University of Delaware with a bachelor's degree in exercise science. Was a GA at Virginia Tech for 2 years, which coincided with Michael Vick's 2 years. So our football team was really good, and I got to be a part of some pretty big-time football games. Right after that, my first job was at NC State, 1 season with the Pittsburgh Pirates, and I've been at Seton Hall since 2005, which I had a pretty shocking moment. We were putting some information on freshman athletes in a computer about a month ago, and they were born in 2005. So that means like our freshman student athletes have been like embryos, infants, toddlers, kids, preteens, and teenagers, and I've just been in the weight room at Seton Hall that same amount of time. Because I remember the first kid was I was born February 20th, 2005, and I was right here on February 20th, 2005, which is an eternity in college athletics, right? Yeah. But the one thing, I think you guys do a really cool job of talking about the recruiting stories, right? So I don't have a recruiting story, but I think the way I got this job might be fairly valuable trying to find a job.
Sure.
So to put this in perspective, I grew up a Seton Hall fan. I had a Seton Hall starter jacket. The '89 championship game is my first memory of college athletics at all. I watched it on TV with my dad, and I was like, that's my team forever, right? I became a Seton Hall fan. And then when I was at NC State, I was born and bred in New Jersey. I was working down in North Carolina, and step back. I was in college, home for the summer, working at a commercial gym down the shore. There's a good place where you experience just kind of like the desk, like that kind of thing. And the Jersey Shore Blue Claws, the Phillies minor league baseball team, had just started operations and didn't have a facility yet. So they were training in the place I was working at, right? So I got to know some of the players, and I introduced myself to their strength coach, right? A guy named Keith Burns, who I'm still friends with till today. I explained to him, I'm almost done with college. I want to do something like you're doing. And he became like a mentor to me in some ways, right? So then a couple years go by, he ends up leaving the Blue Claws and taking a job at Seton Hall, right? I'm down at NC State. We're playing them in women's basketball. I send him there's not even text message at this point. I call his brick of a cell phone, right? And I'm like, hey, dude, if you're down, I know the hotel you're at. I want to get together, talk for a minute or whatever. So I go by the hotel, we talk, and it's like December, right? And he goes, yeah, man, I'm living down the shore. The commute's crazy. I'm about to get married. I think after baseball's over, like the end of the school year, I'm going to put my 2 weeks notice in and try to do something different. This commute's killing me. The travel's killing me.
Sure.
I don't want to do it anymore. So I told him, look, man, if you leave, please put my name in the pot of people that are being talked about. Let me know the day you give your notice. I want to be the first one to apply for the job. Like, my dream job is strength coach at Seton Hall University, right?
Yep. So
then the basketball season wraps up. I end up taking a job at the Pittsburgh Pirates. And during that season, he calls me and says, I just put my 2 weeks in. I talked to some people about you. They'll know you're applying.
Nice.
And I'll give you the good word kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then midway through that season, I did an interview up here, and I got hired July 5th, 2005, and I've been here ever since. But the one that I think young people got to think, connecting those dots is important,
Yeah,
right?
right.
And to some extent, the professional world is a lot of who you know, but you can also you can meet the right people, right?
Yeah.
And cultivating that relationship over a 4-year period led to me. I don't know if it led me getting a job, but it led at least me getting an interview here.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's important. Like I do a thing on Group Me where every intern I've ever had is in the same Group Me, and I post articles. I see a job open, I post in there. And my thing is, if you intern somewhere and you lose contact with your internship people,
Right.
and you apply for a job 8 years from now, and you ask me what I think, how could I give you a recommendation?
Right, yeah.
And I've been in touch with you in a decade. Right?
Yeah.
So I think it's got to go both ways. I think as professionals, we should do a good job of keeping in touch with our interns and helping them in their profession. But if you're an intern right now, if you're a student, keep in touch with the people you're working with now, because hopefully they're the people that are going to help you get that job or the next step or whatever it is in life. And don't just be like, oh, I know that person, but you haven't spoken to them in 3 years.
Right. And it's like you have to make the connections. That's important. But you have to do, if I was an intern, you have to do your due diligence. Be like, okay, like you said, you called them on the phone, like, hey, can we meet here? And hey, can you put my name in here whenever you give you 2 weeks notice? Like, you did the initiative and you put it out there. It's like you can't sit back like, oh, I know that guy, as you were saying. Like, you need to put yourself out there.
Right. Even if it's just a check-in. Like, I know I worked with Good Karma Brands, part of like ESPN's like marketing firm, and that was last fall. And at the end of spring last year at one of your baseball games, I reached out like, hey, like I'm looking for this job. Like, what do you think I should say? Just advice in general as a way to just check in with somebody, and that's a good way to just stay in touch with them, whether it's just, hey, how's it going, or just advice.
It's easier with your generation than it's ever been because of social media, right? Sometimes checking in might be liking an Instagram post or like a comment on a Facebook status that like our parents didn't have the way to do that, right? Like I'll be honest with you, as much social media and podcasts and stuff I've done since this book has come out 2 years ago, I could tell you off top, the people in my life that have been the most supportive online, that like everything, support everything, download the podcast, and the people that haven't, right? So in any single one of them, if I have a chance to, I want to help as many people as I can, but if I have the chance to help someone that's been super supportive versus somebody who hasn't, I'm going to go with the person that rocks with me 10 out of 10 times.
Sure.
Yeah, for sure. And you touched upon briefly about your time with the Pittsburgh Pirates. What was that like, that brief time, and how does that translate coming over to more of a school environment?
Okay. I made great friends, people I'm still in touch with now, right? A great experience. I learned a ton about training baseball players. Even though it was close to 20 years ago, a lot of stuff hasn't changed that drastically. I mean, I stay on top of it and get better, but I did learn a ton. What I would say for anybody looking at that career path or just pro sports in general, if you like the idea of doing the same thing day after day after day with the exact same group of people, it's a great job for you, right? There's 25 guys on the roster. Every Monday through Saturday, we have the exact same schedule. Sunday, we have the exact same schedule, but 4 hours early because we play a day game instead of a night game, right? And I like baseball a lot, I really do. But I looked at that and I was like, how long can I really do this and not want to do other things, right? The other thing with jobs in pro sports and the media kind of stuff you guys get involved in too, there's not a ton of jobs and there's not a lot of movement, right? If you think statistically, you have a better shot at being a Major League Baseball player than a Major League Baseball strength coach.
Really?
Yeah. Well, think there's 25 guys in the dugout. There's one strength coach.
Yeah, the
right?
numbers-wise, yeah.
And they never leave. And if a guy gets fired by the Yankees, he gets hired by the White Sox the next week or whatever.
Yeah.
So I looked at it was a very limited ceiling. For me. It was going to take forever to get anywhere near the top, right? For me, college is a lot more open. There's a lot more jobs, a lot more movement, right? And just day to day, I really like that it's 6 a.m., I'm dealing with baseball, right? And EDM music is cranked up and we're squatting plates and it's a ball, right? But then immediately after that, the golfers are in. It's a completely different vibe, right? And then after that, I go to teach a class and it's calm and I'm teaching with a PowerPoint. There's no music. It's just a different environment. And then in the afternoon, the swimmers come, and that's a different thing altogether. So especially this time of year, I'll do 11, 12-hour days in the weight room, almost 5 days a week, right? But every hour is drastically different, and I really like that. Whereas in pro sports, you're just with the same people doing the same things over and over and over again.
Yeah, touching upon the media stuff, like think of like the broadcasters within baseball, like Michael Kay, who's been there for now 20 plus years. Like, and if he would have gotten fired by the Yankees at any point, someone's gonna call his name and say, hey, like, you want to broadcast for us? Because that's like, it just stays so in house. So it's definitely tricky to stay in the professional sports leagues of things.
Yeah, and the other thing that people don't talk about, like we talk about injury rates in football, basketball, baseball. It's a short career if you're a player. If you're a player, best case scenario with 35, your career is winding down, right?
Yeah.
Michael Kay's like 70. Like that means if someone's in front of you for a job in the media or on the coaching side of things, they might do the job till they're like 80, 85 years old, right? Like Harry Carey, Vince Scully, those broadcasters did it till they died. So that's awesome. I think you got to tip your hat to that, right? But what that also means is that job hasn't been open for close to a century if you're trying to break in. So you got to think about it. At some point, you got to think about, is there a space for me in that world, or do I want to go another route? You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I guess for us, like, we only see the sport that we have. Like, I'm only seeing the baseball lift. You're only seeing the swim lift. Like, there's so much, like, variability, like, across, and so many different things that happen, so many different people you come across in that day. So, like, how can you get, I don't want to say bored is the right thing, but there's different interactions you could have across the course of that day to keep you kind of engaged.
Yeah, definitely. And my thing, I'll be honest. There's teams and players you always look forward to seeing every day.
Yeah.
There's some teams not as much. It's just kind of the way it is, right? But I think you try to connect with everybody. And one thing I think I've learned over the 20 years at Seton Hall is that's an incredibly valuable skill, right? If you want to just deal with basketball players, you got to be a basketball coach. You probably can't be an athletic trainer, strength coach, academic person. But if you look at the people in our building that work with everybody, right, their people skills are amazing to me. And the last year, we're doing close to 100 international students as well, right? Yeah. So not just like up until the way the NCAA has gone up until the last, say, like 5-7 years, the furthest away a kid might be from Seton Hall is like Maryland, right? Sure. And now we're doing people from Spain and Italy and parts of Asia and learning about their culture and stuff like that. Which I think is right. Just actually this morning, I had a pretty cool conversation with two of our women's golfers about, one wants to get in the hospitality industry. She was talking about the hospitality industry in Italy versus America. That's a conversation I would never have if I had a quote-unquote regular job, right? Yeah. So it's kind of a cool thing for both of us.
And just think on the swim team, we have, I think, 10 of those international kids. It's a huge, diverse makeup downstairs in the athletic room. So, let's talk about the shoe life. What has been something that you've enjoyed? You kind of touched about meeting so many people. What is it, like an event you enjoy doing every year, or something that you've enjoyed about Seton Hall since coming here?
Okay, I enjoy a lot of things. Like, I like going to games, I like watching the kids perform. You know what I mean? I like being in the weight room every day. I think the thing I enjoy the most, and probably the thing I've become synonymous with since the COVID stoppage, is the Shoe Academy Awards, right?
Yes.
I think people look forward to what we do there. A quick little history of that. I think people keep asking how I got involved in that. Up until 2017, it was just like a regular end-of-the-year banquet. There really wasn't awards or anything. And then in 2017, they decided to switch it to the award, like Shoe Academy Awards format. And Roberto asked the weight room staff to come up with the first ever Iron Pirate Award, right? Jason refused to name a winner. He just wanted no part of it. He wouldn't do it. So I'm like, all right, I think these two people should win, right? And they're like, well, can you present it? And I'm like, all right, fine. So I walk on the stage in 2017, and not a joke, nothing. I'm just like, the winners are, and I named them, it was Jen Sanslow and Nelson Valerio, right? Right. I got a standing ovation just for being on the stage in front of our student athletes, which I think either says a lot about how well I am liked or how much you guys hate the rest of the administrators in the building.
It has to be the first one. It has to be the first one.
So the next year I was kind of feeling myself in 2018, and it went up there. This is a very specific reference to 2018, but you guys might get it. And it's lit again. Like, the crowd's going crazy. And once they calm down, I'm like, I'm just here to give an award. You're treating me like Drake in the God's Plan video, which is videos going around like you're just losing their mind for him. And then in 2019, we did something similar. And then in 2020, there was no awards because of COVID. We just came out on Instagram. And then 2021, they were going to do it online, right? And they were like, if we're going to do this online, if Angelo does it, maybe some more people will watch. You know what I mean? Right. So I just did it online that year. And I'll never forget this. There's how many hundreds of people were watching it. Luders, as soon as it was over, texted me what a good job I did. Yeah. And I will never forget that. Because it was awesome. It was great. I really appreciate you doing that. And then 2020, we did it live with a performance from J-Real, Jameer Harris. Yeah. And then we did 2022, we did it again. It's been a ball. It's been a lot of fun.
It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. Can I just get one thing out? Just clear the air on something on this? I get asked constantly, why did this person win this award? Did you think about this person for this award? And a lot of times they're valid arguments, right? I have nothing to do with who wins the award. I am given a list of winners that I'm allowed to read and told to make it funny. So if you don't like who wins, I wish I could help you, but I think we do a decent job of picking winners, but I have nothing to do with who actually wins or loses awards.
So don't kill the messenger.
Yeah, don't shoot the messenger.
Yeah, I'm the messenger. That's it on that.
When you were doing it online, I was on the bus on a summer league game and just watching it, and I remember I logged on for, I forget which half I logged on for, but the first thing that was said was CJ, was it
Tibbling?
Yes, Tibbling from soccer. And he was wearing a Seton Hall shirt. And you're like, CJ, we're not at Seton Hall. You don't have to wear Seton Hall here all the time. And I just died laughing because I just wasn't expecting it. Like, oh my gosh, like he's on fire now. So it was awesome. It was great.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
It's kind of as much. I don't know. I really like the fact that they've taken the idea like I'm kind of funny in a weight room and put that on an insane megaphone like stage and amplify it a couple times a year.
Yeah, it's
you know
awesome.
what I mean?
Yeah.
It's really fun.
It's something that we both look forward to every year, and sadly this will be our last one, but we look forward to it.
I'm glad you guys look forward to it because I've said multiple times, your coaches particularly, Rob Shepard and Derek Sapp, if during these awards they bum rush the stage and slap me like Will Smith did to Chris Rock, I would actually say I had it coming because there are no two people I've made fun of more that deserve it less. Rob Shepard won 500 baseball games, and I'm still allowed to make fun of him in a public forum? That's insane. Derek Sapp won a Big East championship his first year as a head coach, and I mess with him constantly, and nobody has a problem with it. That is a broken system.
Oh, that is hilarious. So what goes into, going back on a serious note, what goes into prepping for the Shoe Academy Awards? Like, how do you get yourself mentally ready?
All right. If people knew how much time and effort I put into that.
Is it from like the get-go? It's from like day one, right?
Okay, let's say the awards are like April 20th, right? On April 21st, I start a Google Doc of things I might want to talk about, right? And then I keep going through it, and then in like probably late March, me and Roberto start meeting on a weekly basis, which is basically him just censoring things I might want to say. And Roberto's got a hard job in general, and by that I mean like trying to coordinate all the community outreach programs
right.
and reach all the things we do with you guys, resume building and stuff that I think is awesome. And then someone decided let's make that harder by having him go through jokes with Angelo a couple times this semester.
On Wednesday nights.
And Roberto is he's very, if you ever notice, he's kind of high strung and he's always sweating bullets whenever I'm near a microphone. But my argument is, number one, my track record's pretty good so far, right? I never done anything too crazy.
Yeah.
Nope.
Number two, you asked me to do this, Roberto. You created the problem.
That's right.
Like if you're
In the first place,
if you're having heart palpitations about what's going to come out of my mouth, maybe don't ask me to host it next year.
But I think like so many, it's so well liked, like in my opinion, from all the people I talk to, that like Roberto's probably like, I can't not take it back now because no one else is going to replace him that's better. So
I think this is what's going on, man. Shout out to Roberto. He's one of my greatest supporters in this building. I think he does a great job for our student athletes. I think college and college athletics is a great time in your life, and we're all lucky and privileged to be here. We get that out of the way, right?
Right.
It's also really hard.
Yeah.
It's really tough. It's your first time away from your family. It's an insane amount of physical activity. It might involve injuries. It's travel and sometimes very long bus trips. It's you might have a super hard major and you're missing class a lot of time to play your sport. You're missing holidays with your family. It's a great time in your life. It's a hard time in your life, right? Mm-hmm. So I think a couple times a year, if we could take our foot off the gas and celebrate what we did and laugh at ourselves a little bit, I think there's a definite value to that. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And so sometimes, that's the big picture of the Shoe Academy Awards. But sometimes I think my job in the weight room is almost more on that side than teaching you how to squat or power clean or do a box jump or anything like that. Because you guys are under so much pressure, so much time. In my opinion, you don't need another person screaming in your face about what you're doing wrong, right? So sometimes you kind of come in and kind of talk and we'll kind of catch up on the world kind of thing. I think it's just as important. Or point out something that happened that's really funny, right? Because we're in this weird environment where people are doing like incredible athletic feats, right? Winning Big East championships, breaking Big East records in the pool. But then like these incredibly funny things happen on a daily basis that I'm like, do the other adults not see this? Do you not think any of this is amusing?
And I will say, like, I do appreciate, like, you always recommending me books and podcasts, and I think for me, like, to get more, like, wealth of knowledge that way, but that I would not have had elsewhere, is really beneficial to me. My favorite one was the Will Smith book, and I think you could probably tell a story if you want. He recommended me Will Smith's autobiography, and then you can just go ahead and finish the rest.
So all right. I still think it's a good book. Right?
It's great.
So I read it over Christmas, I think it was, and we got back and we always talk about books and podcasts. I just read Will Smith's book. So he goes, all right, I'm going to get the audio book. It's like 14 or 16 hours, something like that, right?
Yeah.
So he gets through it, And then I think he got through it on like a Thursday, texted me, he read it, really liked it, appreciated the recommendation. On Friday, Will Smith knocked out Chris Rock. And when it happened, I just texted him, sorry. I'm sorry.
One word.
The whole thing happened.
Wait room next day, like, I apologize. I'm sorry. That was good.
The only worst book recommendation I've been a part of in this building was the year before the Astros got caught cheating. Okay. Bobby Shepard gave me the book called The Astros Way, of how they were winning all these games,
sure.
And I read it cover to cover. Then I found out, they were just cheating. Yeah. Apparently, you need only a 300-page book to say you're cheaters. Yeah.
Well, speaking of Roberto, we reached out to him and just asked him to talk to you've worked together closely now for a couple of years now, and he said this: he's the real people's champ of Seton Hall athletics, as selfless as a person that I've met here at SHU, putting the needs of others ahead of his own. He might even tell you that he sometimes goes days without seeing sunlight because he gets to SHU in the darkness and leaves in the darkness. Literally the first one in, the last one out. He gets it when I say that we are here to make the student-athlete experience an excellent one, and more importantly, a memorable one. And I think you can agree that he is the number one guy for that. He makes my job a lot easier and brings such a great energy to our administration. Like the student-athletes, I look forward to our daily chats in the morning after he worked with 6 teams before most people have gotten to their desks. Angelo's a true Seton Hall Pirate, and we're lucky to have him here as part of our family. So, high words for
that right
That's
there.
really nice, man. How about that?
Absolutely, bro.
And nothing, we would say the same thing, and so much
100%.
advice that you've given, me and him during the weight room. During weight room sessions, we'll be in the middle of a hard set, and you'll go, "Oh, did you hear what's going on in the sports radio world and stuff like that?" And it just gets you through your day and through that lift and through that hard practice. So we appreciate you for doing that. So a couple other topics we want to touch on. Talk to us about number one superfan June. What are some of the things that she's gotten to do here at the university as a child, as a kid? What are some of the cool experiences she's done?
First out, super shout out to my daughter June. She's gonna lose her mind when she knows. I specifically didn't tell her I was gonna do this. I wanted to surprise her when I put it on because we've listened to all your episodes together so
awesome.
far.
Oh, nice, great.
I will say this, and this is without hyperbole. She would push Aaron Judge and Michael Phelps out of the way to talk to you two. That's the level of Seton Hall fan she is. Yeah,
that's a huge compliment.
Yeah, she likes sports in general. She plays sports herself, but her level of commitment to Seton Hall is it's just amazing. I don't know how to say it any other way.
Yeah.
To the point where she'll be on my phone and what are you looking at? And she's reading the softball team bios. Did you know where Sidney Babbitt went to high school? No. Why would I know that? Yeah, but man, you know what? I think a lot of times, for somebody been in college sports for a long time, you could get jaded and it's kind of the same thing day after day. And like Roberto said, the days are long. Mm-hmm. But then when she got to be about 5 or 6, I would say, right after COVID kind of ended and we could kind of open the world back up a little bit, I started to look at this through her eyes, right? And think about what this looks like to a 6, 7, 8-year-old, right? Think about there's people on a jumbotron, and those people come up and talk to you after the game, right?
Yeah.
Or they're you're watching softball on TV when it's on ESPN in June, and then you can go to a game and go in the dugout, and those players treat you like a rock star, right? Mm-hmm. And it really opened my eyes a little bit of sometimes we look at how bad this is, and with all the things we have to do, and the things you think you could be doing with your life, you weren't doing this. But then I looked at the experience it's given her, and I'm like, this is amazing. She's surrounded by people that are crushing life, academically, internship-wise, athletically, and those are her role models. So as far as that goes, I think I could ask her much more, and she just really latched on. And the other side of it is the community of Seton Hall has latched on to her, right?
Sure. Yeah,
if we show up to a game, she's like a rock star, which doesn't really I don't think it happens to too many little kids. So it's been a really cool reciprocal relationship both ways.
I think it's cool if you could take a step back, as you were saying, and any Division I student athlete, if you go back to yourself as a 7-year-old kid, be like, wow, I'm going to be a Division I student athlete, you would look up at that person right away in your respective sport, be like, man, I want to be that person. And then now we were like, oh, I want to be you again, the little 6-year-old, 7-year-old again. But just the power and influence that you can have on younger kids is so impactful as a Seton Hall student athlete, any Division I athlete, any college athlete, really. So I think for any Seton Hall student athlete, any college athlete, to realize the impact that you can have is really important. I'm glad we had that on here.
And you two definitely get it. I would say your team, Luders gets it to a level probably beyond most of the baseball guys. All the swimmers get it. Yeah. When these kids come to your meets or when you get a chance to sign a poster or something like that, and some of our teams don't get it, and it bothers me. Like, oh, I got to sign autographs or I got to stay there. Okay. You're a Division I college athlete.
Right.
Statistically, you're not playing after this. Just more people don't play professionally than do, right?
Pyramid that goes
this
up,
might be the only time in your life somebody wants your autograph. You got to lean into that. This might be it. This might be the peak of your life, right? Like maybe when you're older, you do something else where people ask you to sign something. But this might be the most rock star you ever are in your life, and you're annoyed by it.
Yeah.
And these people, these fans that are coming to cheer you on and buy tickets at your games and buy T-shirts, you don't want to give them love back after they left their house to come and watch you play.
Right.
I will never understand that.
I'm with that, and the fact that they want to see you and to hear from you, and I know for just personally baseball and summer ball, there's just hundreds of kids that come. They think you're a Major League Baseball player, and if you could get their autograph or they come down with a baseball or a hat or whatever and you sign for them, it means the absolute world to them. And I think if you can just get that through everyone's head, this small act might mean nothing to you, but it means everything to that little kid.
Yeah.
So if you can just push that as much as you can to your teammates and everything, that's kind of my number one
and
thing.
even
So I agree 100%.
Even just coaching at a young level, like I've had kids that come up to me in my summer league, so how fast do you go in blah 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 stroke? I'm like, oh, this fast. What is that even possible?
Right,
And you just shock their world. And they ask, do you think I can do that? Oh yeah, if you work really hard and pay attention, and it gives them that drive to go.
Can I say two things about that real quick?
Of course.
Yeah.
With the coaching thing, right? I'm going to put this in strength and conditioning terms that it extends to all sports, right? As you look at just New Jersey, I think most people hold in the highest esteem the people that work with the Giants, Jets, Knicks, Nets, those teams, right?
Yep.
Then the colleges like Seton Hall and Rutgers. Then your small colleges like Monmouth, say, and then your high schools, your prep schools, it kind of gets worse. So youth coaches are kind of viewed at the bottom of that food chain, right? But if you think about who has the biggest impact on a young kid, the food chain is completely flipped, right? I think I have a decent impact on the 18 to 22-year-olds that I work with here. I had way less of an impact when I was working with the Pittsburgh Pirates and guys were 35 years old before I met them, right? But I look at the impact my daughter's coaches have on her now, and it's way bigger than what I have on you guys, right? Those are people that will teach you skills that go the rest of your life, whether it's sport-specific skills or just life skills like working hard and being on time and that stuff. Right. So I think it's a weird thing. We view it completely the opposite way of who actually makes an impact on people's lives, right? And all the money, power, media coverage at the top, when in reality it's the people at the bottom that are impacting the most lives the most, in my opinion. Yeah. The other thing with those kids' swimming times, I cannot take my hat off more to Oosterwyck and our entire swim team. A couple summers ago, I started swimming because I wasn't good at it, right? So I would swim one lap, and I would look at the record board in our pool, and it's mind-blowing how fast some of you guys and girls swim. It's amazing to me. Every time I get in the pool 3 in the afternoon, and I just be swimming until I was tired, I'm like, it's got to be 4:30. It was 3:06. It is by far the hardest sport there is. In an endurance capacity. I'm sorry. Hitting a baseball is obviously another level of hard. But that level of swimming and the amount of time you guys spend in a pool is actually amazing to me.
It's incredible, and it's only getting faster, which is the crazy part. Mid-major, our levels, it's getting incredibly fast, which is cool to see. I had a quick question. What would be advice you would give to someone teaching at that youth level to get kids to keep enjoying their sport? Because I feel like we're coming of that age now, kind of, where youth sports are being taken very seriously, where it's almost like a job for an 8, 9, 10-year-old. What would be advice you would give to a coach that's trying to make it fun, make it enjoyable, so they stick with that sport throughout?
I'll give you two real quick. For the coaches, I would say make it fun. That's the most important thing. Make it fun. Teach skills, right? Do what you're supposed to do and learn how to play the sport, but make it fun every day. Right? And for the parents in that situation, I would say realize statistically how rare a college scholarship is, right? And if you need money to go to college, you would be better off just learning the stock market and investing wisely for the next 15 years than you would be paying for lessons and personal trainers and travel teams and tournaments, because statistically you will make money with proper investments that'll push you through college, right? Statistically, your kid's not playing in college. It just doesn't work. There's too few spots for too many kids that want them, and not everybody's gonna get paid to play in college, right? So I think if your kid loves it and they're talented, even if they're talented and they love it, maybe take them to the highest level you can. If they just love it, let them play rec forever and keep them involved, to keep them active, and there's something to that. But make it fun and be realistic about your chances. And if you're not a college player, go be a great high school player and be active and be good forever with that. You know what I mean? There's no shame in that at all.
Yeah, that is for sure. And two more topics we want to touch on before we start wrapping up. So you wrote a book, Finish Strong, Resistance Training for Endurance Athletes. Has the book sold out yet, and how has that process been so far?
There's still a couple copies left and a few Barnes & Nobles around, but it sold a decent amount of copies, right? Nice. And it was really cool because I thought I kind of attacked that a couple years ago with the idea of that there's really not any books about that. So I want to be the first person to do that. I partnered up with Dr. R.J. Borgers, who's also at Seton Hall, and put a book out together almost 2 years ago now, and it's really flown by. And it's really been a fun process, man. A ton of podcasts, ton of interviews, ton of speaking engagements. I'm not going to lie, walking into a Barnes & Noble and seeing your book on the shelf is kind of cool.
That's
right.
That's so cool.
But I wanted to bring it up on the podcast. Do you guys find, I feel like I'm reasonably well liked in the building, right? But whenever I do anything that's actually good and an accomplishment, people are shocked by it. Like, no. Well, we did an article about the Sports Info was nice enough. The two things I've done last year is I thought were like pretty solid, right? Pretty good things in our profession. Put a book out with a pretty big publisher available around the world, and I was elected New Jersey State Director of my professional organization, the NSCA, right? Both articles came out on SHUPirates.com, and I got legitimately dozens of texts and emails of people shocked that I could do anything productive in life. Like, it was a very weird thing, because it was like, I don't know, I just tell people to squat lower in the weight room. I don't know. Like, I don't know. It was just the reaction to both of those were odd to me. I just wanted to get them out there. Like, I think I'm like a pretty nice, funny, personable guy, but I also do some decent things in this profession that I think can be acknowledged by people being like, how'd you pull that off?
Well, I have a response to that. I think for, like, as Roberto said, you're here at 6 a.m. You're probably driving here at 5 a.m. and you don't leave until late at night, and you have a daughter and you have a wife. And, like, it's like you have so much to do when you're here. It's like, where did you find the time to do it elsewhere? I remember I even asked, like, how do you write the book? Because I was one of the people, like, how do you do it? And your answer was, like, really, like, kind of insightful, I think, for you in terms of productivity. What's your productivity tip for writing a book and the time you have to do that?
I think the way I looked at it is almost like we periodize our workouts based on the time of the year and the season. I try to periodize my life. It was as kind of ridiculous as that sounds. Like, I know in the summer I have time to do something. I could write a book. I could do whatever it is. So I kind of block off time to do that. The way I block off time to work out or train the baseball team or do my classes, whatever it might be. So, like, what I did with the book mainly, I was coming to work every day at 6 and writing from 6 till the first team got here. So some days it might be 7, some days it might be 8. But in the weight room at 6, if it's depending on the time of the year, there might be no one around, right? So I was just focused, concentrated work that was productive, not an hour of me checking my Facebook, checking my Instagram, then going back to the book, then going to get a drink, come back kind of thing. So it just kind of worked out like that. But I think if you want to do a project, I think as I got older, I kind of attacked the projects I wanted to do the same intensity and scheduling I attacked the projects I had to do, right? So, like, I have to be at work to train baseball at 7 and swimming at 2, and I started plugging things I wanted to do in the same idea. I have to work on this project at noon. I have to work on this project at night, whatever it is. And if you want to accomplish things, I think that's a good way to attack it. Like, make it something you have to do and put it. I was fortunate now with the first book. There's a publisher gave me deliverable dates on everything, so it wasn't up to me. I had to hand in X amount of chapters by April 15th, whatever it was. And then kind of giving yourself those deadlines and working within them is good too. I think a lot of times people in school, that's the way it is, right? Our coaches tell you where to be. Or you have a project due on May 1st, whatever it is. So I think when you start to do your own projects and you branch out a little bit, have that same idea, have a deadline, have a schedule, and have the schedule work to the deadline.
Yeah, and you mentioned being the director of the National Strength and Conditioning Association. Talk to us about some of the things that you have to do through that and some of the tasks you've been assigned with that role.
The biggest thing is putting on a couple clinics and conferences a year. So I had a pretty good run of being a speaker at those for the last couple of years, and then just kind of got my name out there through that and got elected the director almost 2 years ago now. And it's kind of picking speakers. It's almost like booking any other live event, right? So it's coordinating the venue, the food options, the vendors, the speakers. This is going to sound funny, but I look at it almost like booking a music festival, right? You need 1 or 2 headliners, you need some openers, you got to market it the right way. And I just really leaned into that as far as posting stuff on social media and trying to get as many people as I can to these. Because my thing is, you could have the best event in the world. If nobody shows up to it, you didn't teach anybody anything, right? And then try to make it as fun as possible and try to have like an after party or a cocktail hour or something like that. People want to come and hang out. And because I think as you guys get older, if you go to these conferences, what you learn in the lecture hall is important. You definitely get stuff off the slides and what the speakers say, but a lot of it's networking and what you learned after the conference, hanging out with people. Oh, what do you do in this situation? Or here's my card. Let's exchange cards or Instagram follows or whatever. So if I could provide that experience for younger coaches, I want to do that for as many people as I can.
Do you feel doing that is more fun than the Shoe Academy Awards?
Nothing is more fun than shootout.
That's a good answer. Good answer.
You know what? Here, I think real quick, I'm going to run through that for. I think you guys will appreciate this. You laugh at. I feel like my theory on comedy is you laugh at what you relate to, right? So if you see a comedian that's from like a part of Europe you've never been to, he might be the funniest person in the world to his group of people.
Right,
You
yeah.
can't understand what he's talking about, right?
Sure,
So
sure.
when we're in a room like the Shoe Cat Awards and there's 300 plus people that all had pretty much a shared experience in the year that just passed, I'm not saying it's easy. It's not easy to write for, but you're at a huge advantage because everybody knows baseball team did this. Everybody knows the swimmers did this. Everybody knows Luders and Oosterwyck have a podcast. Whereas when you try to do comedy outside of that bubble, it's real hard. We don't have, as a society, we have, in my opinion, we have progressively less shared experiences because the way the internet and social media works, our world is in some ways getting smaller, right? Because you follow accounts that tell you what you like and what you already believe in.
Right. Yeah,
Most people aren't interested in the world outside of their own little worldview for the most part, right? So it becomes harder to write jokes for people that only know what they know about. Like if there was an SOU end of the year event, right? You would crush with jokes about heavy metal, right? But if you did a joke about Tory Lanez, nobody would know who the hell it is, right? So you got to go to your audience a little bit. And the Shoe Cat Awards is like the perfect audience for me.
Right. And I know, like, for us with this podcast, like, we all have similar experiences as student athletes. So we have a student athlete on, they understand when we talk about when we mention you, or we mention, like, someone else, or a coach, or that. So it's like kind of to share experiences makes this unique for us. Like, so we can have, like, kind of just more specific insight to Seton Hall. So it's kind of a similar thing from the comedy aspect.
Definitely.
Yeah, and it gives everyone like a shared community to listen, like almost like an audience. Obviously, you wanted to get out to as many people like Seton Hall fans and stuff like that. But you obviously the community itself and learning about the people within your community some more. So one of our last segments is called Advice to a Pirate, and you've given us so much advice so far, but this is more for the athletes in their first semester, maybe particularly freshmen. What is some advice that you would give to a freshman athlete looking to make an impact on their first semester of college?
Okay, I have two pieces of advice. Number one, as soon as you get to campus, it can sound like a cliche, but it's true. Do the things. Like, I think the swim team the last couple of years has been the best at this of any team on campus. You go to other teams' events and support them. You go and do service projects with Roberto. You go to the Career Center. You go to the Writing Center. You're involved in things on campus, right? Some of you guys have run for, like, SGA, student government, stuff like that. Multiple swimmers have done that the last couple of years, right? I think at Seton Hall being a small campus and a very small college, a lot of our kids get wrapped up in what we don't have, and they're not taking advantage of what we do have, right? So I think if you look at the kids that are most disgruntled, they're usually commuters that don't lean into the experience at all, right? So now I'm not telling you we do everything perfect. We could do some things better. The school's probably doing some things better than us. But if you're here, my advice would be take advantage of everything that's here. Join clubs, be a part of the community, and have the best. You're going to be here for 4 years no matter what. Be a part of it for the 4 years, right? The second thing I would say is take advantage of our connection to New York City, right? The kids that I've seen do the best over the time I've been here is kids that had majors where they knew what they wanted to do, and they interned in the city. You could argue New York City is the capital of the world. If you do 2 or 3 good internships and have a good GPA and a good major, I've seen, anecdotally, you will have job offers when you graduate, right? If you have a major that's not that strong and you didn't have a great GPA and you have no internships, in my opinion, you can't question why you're not getting a job as opposed to someone that checked all those boxes, right? So I think those two things, I understand the value of going home. Family's important. You might live in a great place and go to the beach all summer. But if you're going to be in this area and New York is right there, I think you got to lean into that and take advantage of it as best you can.
The 45-minute train trip is beautiful. Like even interning last fall with the Good Karma, like as I mentioned earlier, Sundays I would be in the city working with them at different events, and it was easy. It's not like I had to take multiple trains to get there. I didn't have to take a car and spend a gazillion on the tolls and stuff like that. It was a train, boom to boom, and it was beautiful. So it's something to definitely take advantage of while you're here. So our last segment, we call it Walk the Plank. It's kind of rapid-fire questions. Obviously, give your explanation to it if you have a little bit of it, but it's going to be a little more fast-paced as we wrap things up here. So what is easier, writing a book or coming up for the schedule for all sports within athletics?
The book is easier. Because
really?
the book is being a computer. It's fairly easy, right? The other thing is so many moving parts and class schedules and coaches and practice schedules and weather's an issue. It's just much, much harder.
Okay. Does June have a favorite sport she likes to hang out with?
Last year, her favorite was by far volleyball, right? Easy. It was easy answer. But this spring, she was playing softball
Okay.
while our softball team won the Big East championship,
perfect
and she got to
combination.
watch all of that on TV and be at the games and stuff. So I think softball might have leapfrogged over volleyball, but we'll see.
Shout out to volleyball and softball there.
Interesting. Favorite type of lift?
The last couple of years, I've been to like CrossFit type circuits, kind of like metabolic training. So like a lot of kettlebell stuff, jumps, plyos, that kind of. Like we'll call it the cliche is functional training. I've been kind of into that the last couple of years.
Okay. How much is your max squat or bench press?
All right now, or when I was lifting heavy and not running marathons.
Lifting heavy.
Right after college, I squatted 365. And what's the other one?
Bench press.
215. I never got 225, which bothers me a little bit to this day because it's two plates.
Favorite post-workout snack?
All right, if it's a like the middle of the week and we're gonna keep training, like I want to just like feed the machine type stuff, I'm gonna go with some kind of like grilled turkey burger, grilled chicken, something like that.
Nice.
If it's like the weekend, it's like a Friday pizza.
Pizza sounds really good right now. This Friday. Favorite overall song?
I'm trying to think of my favorite song.
Go artist
real,
too if you want.
real Jameer Harris.
Yes. Yes. There we go.
I was trying to think of my favorite song on Real Drill. His album from last summer. You guys listen to that one?
I have not.
have
no.
not.
All right, so I listened to it the day it dropped, as I listened to all of his releases. And I had to text him afterwards, like, dude, you're too nice of a guy to do drill. Like, you're not Pop Smoker. I met your parents. You're a nice
What did he
person.
say? What did he say?
He's like, nah, man, you got to get the vibe. I'm like, let me try it. Let me listen to it again. What's the real question? All right. I do like Jameer's music. I think it's pretty solid. But my favorite artist, Jay-Z, is my favorite artist of all time. I think even if the last couple of years he's not been that great, but his catalog to me is just so deep.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody can really touch that. You know what I mean?
You can get lost in his catalog. If you got to sit down with one celebrity, dead or alive, for dinner, who would it be?
That's a little bit of a tough one. Do you guys have an answer for that?
I think like an obvious one for me would be like a Michael Phelps or like a Michael Kay.
Yep.
Like just to pick their brain on like the sports side of like my sport and like the broadcasting side. I think those would be my two like alive.
Okay.
Maybe Vince Scully dead, just because his legendary career over that span.
What do you got?
In terms of a more religious answer, Jesus Christ, that'd be really
That's
cool.
fair.
But in terms of baseball, my favorite player growing up was Brock Holt. He was a utility player, and he kind of exemplified how to play the game the right way, in my opinion. So I think Brock Holt.
Okay. I think sports-wise, Jeter would be a good one.
Sure.
Yeah.
Like, you got the face of the biggest franchise in sports for 20 years, an incredible run of just like winning at life. I
Yeah.
think he'd be a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a when I first got in the mid-2000s, the media guys used to come out in hard copy, right? And they would always ask all the teams what three people they like to have dinner with, and the answer was almost inevitably Jesus Christ, LeBron James, and Lil Wayne. And how
Wow.
like this was like LeBron was still pretty young, but it was peak Lil Wayne, like the dedication drought era of Lil Wayne. And I'm like, those are your three people? Like, it's such a weird combination of people. I saw like hundreds of times. Like one kid would say, and they would just kind of repeat that they Wheezy again. I'm like, all right, we're doing it again.
As you mentioned during this whole interview, you're a part of a lot of different sports teams. Who is the funniest team to be around?
All right, I'm gonna say it's a tough one. I like every team for different reasons. I'll say the last year softball has been really fun. Like a lot of good personalities, and they're winning, so they're in a good mood all the time. And that makes a difference. You know what I mean? But on any given day, like both of your teams could crack me up easily. You know what I mean?
There were some individuals that were really, really funny.
Yeah.
How about the Sox from the softball team?
Yeah, man, that's a thing that happened. Now, if you get to this is kind of a visual joke, but the whole team, there's 25 of them, got my face put on socks, right? And they all wore them the same day. And then, like, I remember, because this is like right in the beginning of the school year when we were having all the NIL meetings. And like, where's my money for this? Where was Hallball 1 and Open Doors? It's like at one point, then other teams, like 100 people had my face on their socks. I didn't get a dime. How does that even happen? And then, like, go ahead.
No, I was just saying that the reaction video that's hilarious. Like, what is going on?
Yeah. Well, I mean, put yourself in my shoes, or put yourself in my socks. Am I right? Yeah, that was really something else.
Yeah.
Who has the best music in the weight room? Which team produces the best music to listen to?
I'm gonna go. This is gonna be a weird choice. I'll explain it. Women's tennis at least brings different music because a lot of our internationals they play like Bad Bunny and J Balvin and stuff like that. Every other team plays about the same music. It's like 8-hour trap mix of Little Baby, The Baby, Drake and 21 Savage. I like that music, but it's the same couple songs over and over and over again on just a continuous loop. So if somebody brings something new, I appreciate that.
Okay, final question for me. In one word, describe your coaching style.
I'm going to go personable.
Why,
and what I mean by that is I think I try to get to know everybody a little bit, right? And not just be the guy barking out orders and commands and get to know everybody and try to know, first of all, like your body, your injury status, and your sport, why we're doing the things we're doing. Mm-hmm. And then I think try to be like a friend more than a disciplinarian if I can. Now, if you're going to be late and disrespectful and not follow the rules, then we got to change that narrative, right? But if you're on time and doing what we asked to do, do I really need to be in your face screaming and berating you for when you've already been that in practice for the previous 3 hours? Right. Maybe we can take our foot off the gas, and if you're going to lift weights like an adult and try to get better, we can both be adults and get better together.
Yeah, and that is beautifully said. I got to sit down and quickly talk to my assistant coach this morning after practice, and he put it to me best, like, you adapt with the times, basically. Like, you'll sit down with each coach and be personable with those coaches and figure out how can we get better each and every year, and making like changes to lifts, not having the same lift over and over, so that we all excel. So we're grateful for that. The coaches are grateful for that, and that's all I have. Anything from you?
Yeah, no, Ange, thanks for doing this. We don't have you on. We think you're definitely going to increase the audience of this podcast. I think a lot of student athletes want to listen to us, of course, June as well. And thank you for being who you are and making the weight room atmosphere and environment and the whole environment at Seton Hall what it is. You're a huge part of that, as Roberto said, and we definitely agree. So thank you very much.
That's awesome, guys. Best of luck with the show. I'm looking forward to hearing more of it.
Yes, thank you so much. That's going to wrap it us for episode 6, special episode 6, VIP access here with Angelo Gingerelli, the assistant strength and conditioning coach here at Seton Hall University. I'm Justin Oosterwyck, joined alongside Jonathan Luders and our special guest, Angelo Gingerelli. We will see you next time.